Good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday. Today we are learning the ninth Perek of Nedarim, and we're wrapping it up on Monday, Mr. Shep, if no, Sunday, 9, 10, and 11. So that means that today, tomorrow, and Sunday. And Monday we're starting Nazir, Mr. Shem. Those of you who are following tonight is the Siyam on um, Sefes Menachos from Daf Yomi. If you finish being Menachos, Malatif to you. And Rich Hashem, we continue our march to the Siyam Shas. Today's shiur is Lila Shma Zahar Nachman ben Simcha Cohen Yeshua Mordechai B'Shep Sabracha Sar B'Shmuel Leib and Binah Moshe Ben Yosef. May the Neshama shall have an aliyah. And Refuah Shlema for Yisrael Baruch Aleh Baruch Bas Pesach Zelda Baruch Eliana Bas Yal Bracha Aram Yitzchak Marisha Chai Bas Tababela Refuah Shlema B'Sel Shar Chal Yisrael and Shefer Bracha Batzlach Tzvi Noach Ben Bracha Bracha Leah and Zivik Bekarov to Shmuel David Ben Hinder Miriam. Okay, and special shout out to our sponsors of Seder Nashim, the Imperial Advisory Group, specializing in CFO stuff for 30 years. If you need help with CFO stuff for your company, reach out to them, imperialgrp.com. Okay, how do you release a person from a neder? We've learned about taking a dar, making a dar, and everything that we learned in the past week or so. So in order to release yourself from a neder, for a person to release themselves from a neder, he has to find a pesach, an opening. He comes in front of either a mumcha or based on three Talmid Chachamim, and he asks to have his neder annulled. So they have to ask him, is there anything that you know about the neder that you had not expected when you had taken the neder and had known then that you would have not done it? And when he says yes, I would have, if I knew this and this and that, then then that would be a Pesach and the neder would be null and void. And null and void not only at that moment, but it goes retroactively to having not even been chal to begin with. Okay, so let's start. Perek Tes Mishnah Aleph. Rabbi Lezer Omer. Rabbi Lezer says, "We may use an opening for a person to release from his neder based on concern for the honor of his father and mother." This Perek has 10 Mishnahs. Let's go. Meaning that if you made the neder, yes, if you would have made the neder, you would have realized that the people would shame your parents for your sin of making the dar. Would you still have made the neder? So if you would have said that, so if he says no, he would not, then the neder is batal. The Chachamim answered using such an opening to annul the neder because no one would admit that he lacks concern for his parents. Therefore, even if this person does not care about his parents and their honor would not have prevented him from making the neder, he would not admit it. Instead, he would lie and say that it would have prevented him. Since this answer cannot be trusted, the opening is not valid, is invalid. Rabbi Tzadok. Rabbi Tzadok said, he's questioning Rabbi Lezer's opinion. According to his reasoning, just as we can use an opening for a person based on his concern for the honor of his father and mother, we should also be able to use an opening for him based on his concern for the honor of God. Meaning, we could ask him, how do you know that you would be considered wicked by Hashem because of your sin of making a neder? Would you have made a neder? Certainly, Rabbi Lezer agrees that such an opening is no good, since no one would admit that he lacks respect for Hashem. A person who says that concern for Hashem's honor would have prevented him from making his neder might not be telling the truth. And if an opening based on Hashem's honor is invalid for this reason, then an opening based on the honor of one's parents should certainly be invalid for the same reason. But the Mishnah defends Rabbi Elazar's opinion by arguing that there's a major difference between an opening based on Hashem's honor and an opening based on his parents' honor. Imkain and Nedarim. If that's the case, if an opening based on the honor of Hashem would be valid, then Nedarim will not be annulled properly because as we said before, no one would admit that he doesn't care about Hashem's honor. Rather, he would lie and claim that concern for Hashem's honor would have prevented him from making the neder. Eliezer agrees, therefore, that such an opening is possible, is invalid. This is quite different from an opening based on parental honor, where a person would not be afraid to admit that he is unconcerned about the honor of his parents. The Chachamim agreed with Rabbi Eliezer with Davar Shebeno Levein Avi ve'Imo. Someone made a neder regarding a matter that is between him and his father and mother, meaning he prohibited his parents to benefit from him. So post that we may use an opening for him based on his concern for the honor of his father and his mother. Since he directed a neder against his parents, he has shown that he does not care about them. So in this case, if the concern for their honor would not have prevented him from making the neder, he would have admitted as much. Therefore, if he says that it would have prevented him, we believe him. Mishnah Beis. Well, Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer also said, "Poskim ben nullified. We may use it opening based on annulment, meaning that if an unexpected change takes place after the neder that would prevent the person from making the neder, had he thought of it, then that's a valid opening that can be used to annul the neder. Chachamim Osrim, the Chachamim answered using such an opening to annul a neder. According to the Chachamim, a person would not refrain from making a neder if he takes an unexpected change into account, because he does not really think that the change will happen. Therefore, unexpected change is not a valid opening. Okay, it said, how so? Amar, for example, someone said, that I shall not benefit from that man, so and so. I mean, I should not have any benefit from this particular person. I mean, Yankel, let's say Yankel. The Nas is suffer, and so, and Yankel then unexpectedly became a Talmid Chacham. The person who made the neder wishes to use his services, which he is also to do because of his neder. Or Yankel, who was unexpectedly about to marry off his son, and the person who made the neder wishes to join the wedding suitor. As soon as they sue in, the Amar, he therefore says to a chacham, either had I known that he would become a Talmid Chacham, or that he would marry off his son. Well, you see, no, that I would not have made the neder, and that would work. Another example. Someone said, that I shall not enter this house, and the house was then unexpectedly made into a shul, and I wishes to enter it and to pray, to daven. Amar, he therefore says to a chacham, had I known this house would be made into a shul, I would never have made the neder, and that would work. In each case, Rabbi Eliezer permits annulling the neder based on the actual change, based on nullified, while the Chachamim answered it. They said, no way. Mishnah Gimel. Excuse me. Rabbi Meir says, yes, there are cases that are like no life, but are not treated as no life, meaning that there are cases in which an unexpected change can be used as an opening to annul a neder, The Chacham do not agree with Remeir. Rather, they hold that even in these cases, the unexpected change cannot be used as an opening. Cain said, how so? Amar, if someone said, Konam she'eni noses as plones she'aviyara. Konam, that I shall not marry Yankel because her father, Yankelis, I should not marry um, this lady because her father is a bad man. Amalo mace of sha'as tshuva. Later, people told him that her father died or that he did tshuva did tshuva. Konam levai she'eni nechnas. Or if he said, the Kohen I shall not enter this house, Shakelev Rab Besocho or Shanachas Besocho, because there's a bad, a dangerous dog inside it, or because there's a poisonous snake inside it. Amalo Mesa Kelev or Shanara Kanachas. Later they said to him that the dog died or that the snake was killed. Hooray, hey, Kinola, the Einan Kinola. These are the cases of Nolad because they are unexpected changes that took place after the neder was made. Yet they are not treated as nolad, and they may be used as openings. Since the person stated the reason for his neder is his father's wicked or because there's a dog or snake inside the house, it is as if he made the neder dependent on that reason. Therefore, when the reason stopped applying, the neder can be annulled. This is the opinion of a Meir. The Chacham do not agree with him. The Chacham do not view the person as having made his neder dependent on the stated reason. Therefore, as with all cases, annul that the change cannot be used as an opening to annul the neder. Mishnah Dalit. But Rabbi Meir also said a poschilo min hakosu sheb'Torah. We may use an opening based on that which is written in the Torah, and we say to him, Ilu hayisi yodesh ata over alosika v'alositor. Would you have made your neder had you known that if you were motivated by revenge or hate, you would transgress the Isidore rights, so you shall not take revenge, you shall not bear a grudge, and you shall not hate your brother, meaning your fellow Jew in your heart. We have to look at the Malchin, you shall love your fellow as yourself. Or we say to him, would you have made your neder had you known that you might transgress be over the Isser of and your brother shall live with you, which obligates one to support the aniyim. Because perhaps the mudar might become poor and you will not be able to support him since your neder prohibits him to benefit from you. If he says, had I known that it is so, I would not have made the neder. The neder is permitted. We can annul the neder on the basis of this opening. Mishnah Hey, Poskan Adam B'Ksubas Isto. We can use an opening for a person based on his obligation to pay his wife's ksuba, meaning if someone made a neder that will result in his having to divorce his wife, they ask him, how do you know that you would have to pay her ksuba? Would you have made the neder? If he answers no, we can use that opening to annul his neder. What's happened with someone who made a neder asking himself to have benefit from his wife, and he was therefore required to divorce her and pay her ksuba? Arba meos dinar. And her ksuba was 400 dinars, a very large sum of money. When he came before Rabbi Akiva to ask whether he must pay her, Rabbi Akiva obligated him to give her ksuba to her. Amalo, he said to Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimona meos dinar hiniach abba. My teacher, my father left me and my brother inheritance of 800 dinars. Benato achi arba meos, arba meos. My brother took 400, and I took 400. This is all the money I had. Though Daya Shatita Himasam, is it not enough for her that she takes 200 and I keep 200? Why must I give her the full 400? Akiva said to him, I feel at the even if you had no money left and you were forced to sell the hair on your head for food, you must give her entire ksuba to her. He then said to her, um, he then said to Rabbi Akiva, Ilo hisi yadeh shehu came, or he's noted. If I had known that would be so, I would not have made the neder. V'tira Rabbi Akiva, and upon hearing this, Rabbi Akiva annulled the neder and thereby permitted her to him. The story shows that if a husband's realization that he must pay the ksuba would have prevented him from making a neder, then we have a valid opening that lets the neder be annulled. Okay, Mishnah Vav. Post can be in that we can use an opening based on the effects one neder would have on Shabbos and Yom Tov. You can find the Pesach. If someone made a neder to fast or not to eat meat for a period of time that includes Yom Tov Shabbos, we ask him, how do you know that Yom Tov Shabbos would fall during the period of your neder, which you made the neder? The answer is no, we can annul his neder. Originally, the Chachamim would say that when such an opening is used, only those days, meaning Yom Tov and Shabbos, are permitted. Even after the neder is annulled, he may eat on those days alone. But on the rest of the days, but the rest of the days included in his neder remain usher, since he regretted having made the neder only because of its effect on Yom Tov and Shabbos. It is annulled only with regard to those days. This was the law until Rabbi Akiva came and taught that a neder released in part is released in its entirety. And as long as an opening for just part of the neder is found, then the entire neder can be annulled. In our case, since an opening isn't found with regard to Yom Tov and Shabbos, the neder can be annulled for all other days as well. Mishnah Zion, Ketzan. How so? When do we apply this rule? Amar. If someone said to a group of people, Konam she'eni nena lekuchem, Konam that I will not have benefit from any of you, Huter echad mihem, if one of them became permitted, if the neder is annulled with respect to one member of the group, Huter kulan, all of them become mutter, for the neder is annulled with respect to them all, and the one who made the neder may benefit from any member of the group, because the neder annulled in part is annulled in its entirety. However, the law is different when he said, Kohen that will not have benefit from this person and that person, and so on. He mentioned each member of the group separately, and he said that the second person is also like the first person, and the third is also like the second. In this case, we do not apply the rule that a neder that is annulled partly is annulled entirely. Rather, the halacha is as follows: Huter harishon hutra kuha. If the first person became permitted, being that the neder was annulled with respect to him, all of them become permitted. Since he said that the second person should be us at the first one, and the third at the second, if the first one becomes permitted, so do all of them. Hutar achron, but if the last one becomes permitted, achron mutar v'chulan asur. Only the last one is permitted, and all the rest of them remain forbidden, because their isurim do not depend on the last one's prohibition. Hutar hamsahi. If one of the people in the middle becomes permitted, imana ulamata mutar. Those mentioned from him and above also become permitted. Anyone from him and above remains usher. Someone said the benefit I receive from this person is like a korban to me, and the benefit I receive from that person is a korban to me, and so on. We require a separate opening for each and every one of them. Since he said a korban regarding each person separately, he indicates that each is bound by a separate neder, and a separate neder requires its own annulment. Mishnah Ches. There are more examples now of Rabbi Akiva's rule. Once the neder is annulled, in part, it's annulled entirely. Someone said, I will not taste wine because wine is bad for the stomach. I'm the love, hello, I'm Yushan Yafa. And then people told him, but aged wine is good for the stomach. If upon hearing this, he regrets his neder, Hutter b'miyushan, he becomes permitted to drink aged wine because his neder is based on a mistake. Below b'miyushan b'vad hutter b'chol hayayin, and he becomes permitted to drink not only aged wine but also other types of wine. It's a neder that was annulled in part is annulled entirely. A similar case, Konam batsal she'eni toem batsal ra l'leif. Someone said, Konan, I will not taste onions because onions are bad for the heart. And below, hello, kufri yafa l'leif. And then people told him, but the village onion is good for the heart. But if upon hearing this, he regrets the neder, hutter bekufri, he becomes mutter to eat the village onion because his neder was made in error. Below bekufri bavad hutter ela bechol habetzalim. And he became permitted to not eat not only the village onion, but also all other types of onions. The neder that was annulled in part is annulled entirely. Maisahai. There was an incident where someone asked himself to eat onions because he thought that all onions are harmful to the heart. The Meir mattered him to eat all types of onions. Based on the above rule, that a neder that's partly annulled is entirely annulled. Okay, Mishnah Tess. Tess and Yud. Two more to go. We may use an opening for a person based on his own honor or the honor of his children. For example, if he made a neder that forces him to divorce his wife, we say to him, would you have made the neder had you known that tomorrow they would say about you, Kach, he, Vesto, Shalploni, Megarish, as not so. Such is the habit of Yankel that he divorces his wives. People talking about him this way affects his reputation. This provides an opening to annul the neder based on his own honor. We can further ask, would you have made the neder had you known that they would say about your daughters? But no, Gerusha saying they are the daughters of divorced women. Ma rasan iman shel elu garesh. What bad behavior was seen in their mother that caused her to be divorced? Meaning that people will think that he divorced his wife because she committed adultery. This damages his daughter's reputation as well because it will be thought that they will copy the mother's behavior. This provides an opening to annul the neder based on the children's honor. If he says, had I known that it would be so, I would not have made the neder. The neder is permitted, and the neder can be annulled on the basis of these openings. And we don't have to be concerned that he'll be ashamed to admit that he would have made the neder despite the disgrace that will be suffered by him or his children. And the last Mishnah for today, Mishnah Yud. If someone says, I will not marry so-and-so, the ugly one, but in fact, she is beautiful. Or he says, I will not marry so-and-so, the dark one. But in fact, she's light-skinned. Or he says, I will not marry so-and-so, the short one. But in fact, she's tall. In all these cases, he is allowed to marry her. Mishnah explains. She's permitted to not because she was ugly, then became beautiful, or because she was dark, then became light. Kitsara Vanessa's or because she was short and then the time became tall. This case is not that her appearance changed. The neder can be annulled because he would not have changed his mind. He would not have made the neder had he known that her appearance would change. A change in appearance cannot be used for annulment because it's nulla, because unexpected change takes place after the neder is made. Ella neder tos. Rather, the woman is allowed to him because the neder was made in error. He mistakenly thought that she was ugly, dark, or short, but in fact she was beautiful, light, or tall the entire time. Since the neder is based on a mistake, it is invalid even without an annulment. According to another Tana, even if she was ugly or dark or etc. at the time of the neder and became beautiful afterwards, the neder is invalid without annulment. The Ma'aser be'echad shenadar mibasachoso hanaya. It once happened that someone made a neder forbidding himself to benefit from his sister's daughter because he thought that she was ugly and did not want to marry her. The base of Yishmael Yefua. And they, the members of her family, brought her into the home of Rabbi Yishmael and made her beautiful. Amallah Rabbi Yishmael then brought her before this man and said to him, "B'ni wazu nadarta, my son, was it regarding this woman that you have made your neder?" Amallah, love. He said to Rabbi Yishmael, "No, I did not mean to prohibit someone so beautiful." Yitzie Rabbi Yishmael, and upon hearing this, Rabbi Yishmael permitted her to marry him. Rabbi Yishmael reasoned that since it was possible to beautify her, she could not have been ugly in the first place. Then the man's neder was thus made in error and did not require annulment. And finally, at that moment, Rabbi Yishmael wept and said, "Benos Yisrael knows him. The daughters of Israel, I mean, all Jewish women are really beautiful. But poverty makes them ugly." Rabbi Yishmael was cried over the tragic state of Jewish girls in his day because their poverty looked unattractive, even though they were naturally beautiful. Because Shemais Rabbi Yishmael, when Rabbi Yishmael died, and the daughters of Israel deeply mourned his loss, and they raised a kina over him, saying, "Benos Yisrael el Rabbi Yishmael b'chena." The daughters of Israel cry over Rabbi Yishmael. And so it says by David HaMelech that Hesped over Shaul HaMelech. Benos Yisrael el Shaul b'chena. Daughters of Israel cry over Shaul, who would cover you in scarlet with fine clothing, who would place golden jewelry upon your clothing, because he was concerned for poor Jewish women. King Shaul HaMelech gave them fine clothing and jewelry so the men would want to marry them. That's what Bishmael was like Shaul too, in that he had a rahmanis for Jewish women who were poor. And that's all for today, folks. We'll see you tomorrow for Perek. Have a wonderful day. Kol Tov.